Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Forecast video brought to you by Ag South Farm Credit. Okay, here's what we're going to do in this video. I've got, of course, some important stuff to be talking about in the near term, just to kind of get you clued in on where I think this pattern is heading for the rest of April. But beyond that, we've got brand new long-range information, and I'm going to do a model comparison. I'm going to talk about my analog years. We're going to put it all together in one big narrative. And if that's what you're really interested in this particular forecast video, go straight to when I get to these slides, okay? That's what I want you to do. But we do have other things to talk about, and the first is our drought scenario. Across the United States right now, we have about 18% of the land area in D1 to D4 drought. Now, that shade of yellow you see there is abnormally dry. So this spot in North Carolina is technically not in drought. It's in the abnormally dry category. But you know, we've been talking about that for weeks. Now, what's impressive about this particular map is how much things have changed this winter. So if you come over here to the Maps tab and slide down to Change Maps, you'll automatically be taken to what happened in the last week. What I want to do is I want to take you back 6 months to look at how much this drought monitor has changed over that time. Pretty significant. That's what this winter did. And actually last fall a little bit too. And the question that we're going to ask here is, are we at risk of spring or summer drought development? And those are going to be the big questions we're going to be asking and answering at the end of this video. We're going to do a model comparison. I'm also going to give you the analogs. But we're at this time now where it's that time to start thinking and worrying about this. I will say this. Should we get into a drought scenario at some point this summer, and there is historical precedent of it right over this section of the Southeast, specifically 2016, given the ocean temperatures and the newest forecast information we have about the hurricane season, I think this is going to be a hyperactive one. And I'm going to give you that case at the end of this. By the way, one other fun thing to do about this is I've gone over to the Data tab and clicked on Time Series, and I got this queued up for so it doesn't take too much time. But I selected the geographic region called the Southeast, which is, of course, where Ag South territory is. And what's nice about it is it'll recreate a time series of drought area in the Southeast since the modern drought monitor was put into place, which was the year 2000. And it is important to note that if you look at our historic drought episodes compared to where we currently sit, well, this was last fall, and we are, if I get to the tail end of this, there, we only have 2.63% of the total land area in the Southeast that is in even the abnormally dry category, and that's that little spot in North Carolina. The rest of the area is completely drought-free. Now, one thing's for sure, this past week, watched one of the slowest moving lows I've seen in a long time. This was just on Thursday, and I'm recording this late on Thursday night because I wanted to make sure that you had this early Friday because I've been kind of excited to give you this long-range information. So I decided to record before I went to bed, and this was just as the sun was setting here across the country, and that low packed a punch. Look at the storms that popped up here late in the afternoon and toward the evening hours in parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. That storm system took 4 days to cross the country, and as I was watching the radar animations here as we get into the overnight hours on Thursday night, this did add some locally very, very heavy rainfall as it came through. Now, speaking of heavy rainfall, I do want to show you this. This was valid through 9 o'clock on Thursday night. This storm system delivered extremely heavy rains from parts of the Texas Panhandle through the Delta and all the surrounding areas where we saw up to 10 inches of rain out of this. It hit parts of the Gulf Coast and was delivering rain as I was speaking to North Carolina in spots. But this was a pretty potent system that went rolling through, and you have to understand that this is going to be the last of that variety for a while. Okay? You're actually going to see in the forecast things are going to be trending a bit drier. So it was important because over the last 30 days, we had been a little drier in these areas. So to be bringing in that precipitation was overall a good thing. We didn't need any of it here, but we did need it to fill in a couple of the more recent little drier spots in parts of the Southeast. Now, I was mentioning this to a group I was talking to about cotton, and I said, listen, I understand that the entirety of the South, as you get into summer, is always a week away from drought, right? We've kind of joked and talked about that a lot in the past. We want to ask, is this a spring that's going to give us drought risk, and is it a summer that's going to give us drought risk? And we're going to start off by just looking at the next 10 days. As we stare at it, a lot of what you see here, this is what came through on Thursday, because remember, this is the run. I was using the runs on Thursday night. We do have another system that's going through California this weekend. It's going to be heading to the south, and it's going to pop out somewhere here. meaning we're going to have severe storms here on Monday, severe storms here on Tuesday, but that system is going north. It's not digging like the last one did, and overall we get a bit of a drier signal. Now thinking about that, I want to show it to you, because on Friday, here's the deeper low keeping us cool. That's the cool weather we have on Friday, but that thing goes out by the weekend, and now it's all attention here. Drier week ahead for us. That low comes out and goes straight toward the Central Plains. Severe weather risk on Monday here. Severe weather risk on Tuesday in Illinois down to the Mid-South. But look at where the low goes. It's way up here going into, Minnesota. Behind it, there's cold air, but this does not get back into our area. And what we're going to be watching is maybe the chance for heavier precipitation in the day 8 through 14 time frame. But even that is not that strong of a signal at this point. So here we go. Let's pick this up Friday morning now, where the low is now fully over the northeast. It's cleared out the Ag South territory, and there might just be a little bit of convective, cold kind of convection on the backside of this. I say cold because it'll be cooler in the low levels, but much colder in the upper levels, giving us a destabilization. So don't be surprised if you get some scattered showers coming in on the backside of this as we work into late Friday. But then that system's out, and high pressure takes over, and we watch for the next one to come through. Temperatures rebound gradually over the weekend. Very warm week for most of next week. So when does the next system come through? Well, let's look at 4 different forecasting systems. First is the artificial intelligence. You see this rain here? Remember, this was the 12Z run from today. In fact, we may have the new 18Z in. Yeah, it just came in. This is all right now. This isn't even, this isn't from any system over the next 7 days. This is right now. So after that, we go over a bit drier. What about the WPC? This is all, again, what happened on Thursday afternoon. So this isn't really even in the forecast. What about looking at the European model? Again, most of this was from Thursday afternoon. After that, we have a drier signal, and the GFS says the same thing. So we can look at this another way. Probability maps. Over the next 7 days, what's the chance of getting an inch? Everything that you see shaded in here, this was happening when I was recording. So it's already gone. What we're going to be watching for is once we get out there to the 19th, 20th, 21st, maybe we have a system that tries to sneak down here to start to push some moisture toward the east, but it's even not looking that wet over that time frame. In fact, you go out 10 days and look at the chance it's staying under a half inch, and a lot of Ag South territory is in that area. And what's not, well, in other words, what's showing up white is where it was raining when I was recording, which is what these model values are valid for. So I'm sorry for the confusion, but it's tricky when I record on a late Thursday night. When it's rain, you watch this on Friday and it's gone. So just want to make sure that that's clear. But I do want to let you know, some of the longer range forecasts will continue to reflect stuff like this happening. As we get out there into Monday and eventually into Tuesday, there's this multi-day severe weather risk. But that system that brings us severe weather here on Monday and there on Tuesday is going that way, not toward us. All right, so what do we make out of it? Let's go to the models and get a good rundown of this. GFS left, European right. System leaves. Remember, we could get some showers on Friday afternoon, but this is going through Saturday, Sunday. Really not a whole lot to talk about. Maybe a front comes over the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, but doesn't really get into Ag South territory. That's Monday. Here's the next system. See it in there in the Central Plains. It goes straight north. We really don't get anything out of it. Maybe there's a chance for some late week showers, but I'm not even buying into that fully. And so when's the next system? It may not be until the 19th and 20th that we start to bring in a chance for rain. I mean, that's that far out. Maybe it's the 21st that we get a chance for precip. So most of your next 7 to 10 days goes on a drier kick. And we just want to know, is that going to last? Is that going to be the kind of how things shape up? Well, we look out there into that week 2 time frame, which gets us out there at about the 25th of April. And the wettest conditions will be here on that system on the 19th and 20th. But even though they're showing you kind of in the greens here and near normal, I'm still skeptical on how far this system's going to get. I'm more than prepared to be wrong, but I think I agree more with the CPC in saying I think the wettest weather's here, not necessarily over the Ag South territory. So what does this mean? We're going to get a bit of a break. Does it last? That's what I want to discuss with you. So we're going to look at the May forecasts and kind of get a hint on that. First, temperatures. Now, since the beginning of April, we've gotten back over on the mild side of things. We had some very cold weather that came in after the equinox on March 20th to finish March. But overall, we've gone over with more mild conditions. And I'm just going to let you know right now, I don't see any major late April or even early May major cold air intrusions. That would be an extremely late frost event for a lot of us, and I just don't see it. So what do we see in terms of temperatures? Well, so far since February, we've been ahead on accumulating heat units. The only place that's not been that way is the southwest into California. And over the next 7 days, well, Friday is our cold day. Because watch, as we get into Saturday, rebound. Sunday, all of this warmth in the central United States is because the only low is way over here coming along the California coast. So there's just a big opening up of warmth. And it's kind of crazy to say this, but, this part of Nebraska may be touching 90 degrees. We're going to be in the 80s. That's Sunday, getting into Monday, Tuesday. I can just keep going. It's just going to stay warm. Cold air comes into the north. It settles in toward the east. It will knock our temperatures down a bit, but I'm not concerned about them getting knocked down to where it's so cold that there's going to be a problem. So if in this drier weather you're planting some crops and those crops are dependent on growing degree days as a measure, we will be collecting across North and South Carolina and parts of Georgia anywhere from 100 to some places up to 130 GDDs just in the next 7 days. So if you're planting corn, just because this is a corn formula here, base of 50, max of 86, it'll emerge in 7 days based on these numbers. So I mentioned, let's go back and have a look at that. There it is. That colder air coming in the day 5 through 10 time period, we're still mild here. But that will press east. It'll be happening next weekend, not the one we're in now, but next weekend and beyond, some cooler air comes back in. But look at this. This is not cold. We've got a couple of days of maybe below normal temperatures, and that's about it. I am not overly concerned about it. And we've seen the models suggest this. Getting out there to that last week of April into the first week of May, there's better consensus that we have a more mild pattern. So then we got to ask, what about the precip? Because right now, it seems as these next 10 days with a drier signal, does that continue? Most of the long-range models say no. Okay, this would be the European model looking out there from April 15th to May 15th. And I don't see an overly strong dry signal. In fact, I think what's going on here is some continuation bias or some persistence bias for the next 10 days, just lasting out that far. I can compare this to also what the GFS extended shows, and notice how it's got a little bit more of the wetter conditions in your area. So there's nothing alarming just yet. And to be honest, a good 10-day stretch to get a lot of field work done, to get stuff planted, to get going with this season, not going to be a problem. The heat's going to be there. The drier conditions overall will be there. We're not going to be dodging raindrops every single day. So we now get this idea about what the rest of April and early May might look like. What do we do from there? So what we're going to do next, as I bridge this into the longer range, is we're going to start talking about kind of a multifaceted way of forecasting. And it's going to come down to two ideas. I'm going to tell you to watch 3 different spots in terms of ocean temperatures. And then we're going to pin the models against the analogs. In other words, the forecast models against history. Now there's 3 spots I need you to watch. The North Pacific. Watch these ocean temperatures. I'll explain why in a second. Here, where our La Nina is beginning to take shape, and the very warm Atlantic, which will be critical for our hurricane season. Let's talk about La Nina developing first. It's very common that after a winter El Nino event, they all peak in winter, that we crash back into neutral and toward La Nina in the following 6 to 10 months. And we're going to do that this time. We were just here, and we're going back down. How quickly we get there, though, is going to be a tough thing to figure out. So what does history tell us? I told you we'd do this, right? So if I went back and found every year, they're all listed here, where we had an El Nino event that crashed in spring and was followed by a La Nina in late summer or fall, well, what did they do in May? You put them all together, and I still see a stormier May for you. I see more open planting windows for the Corn Belt. I don't see that as a drought risk for the Corn Belt, but I see some open planting windows. But I see overall, we could get into a pretty stormy May across much of the Southeast based off history. What about temperatures? I don't see any major signs of temperature stress early. In other words, we're not just going to get scorching hot in May and never let go. But we want to know what's going to happen beyond May. So to do that, let's take a look at what some of our longer range models are suggesting. And this is kind of what I'm excited to share with you and why I'm recording on Thursday night. Okay, on the left, That's the newest update from a NOAA model called the CFSV2. It's bringing in a very strong La Nina by the time the hurricane season gets here. And that's no good. That's a very almost hyperactive hurricane season forecast. European model says throw the brakes on it a bit. Bring in neutral conditions, maybe keep them around to October. Two entirely different scenarios. What does all that mean? Well, let's look at it this way. I see that both in the European forecast, which is now on the left, and the National Multimodal Ensemble, which is stuff we run in North America on the right, that they have a different signal for the transition to La Nina, with the European model being slower and weaker than the NMME. But these North Pacific Ocean temperatures need to be watched just as closely as you watch the Atlantic Ocean temperatures for your hurricane season. And I think it's just important to tell you why. Now, in summer, almost every summer, there's a blocking pattern that sets up. If these ocean temperatures get colder and colder and colder with time, that blocking signal's right in the smack dab in the middle part of the country. If they don't, we will watch other factors that could produce ridging of high pressure somewhere in the Cotton Belt, maybe from Texas, but possibly into Ag South territory. And I'm concerned about that this year. So what are the ocean temperatures doing right now? Well, they're slightly cooler than average, but this isn't a story yet. The only real story in this is the loss of El Nino toward La Nina and how warm this is. That's the only thing that I've got some confidence in. So let's go take a look at what these individual models are doing and compare them to history. How about history first? Now, I've shown you this, but let's review this again. July to August. We just looked at May. What about June, July, and August? During those 3 months, history would tell me to tell you to be on the lookout for one of these 3 ovals. When we had La Ninas developing following a winter El Nino event, we just tended to favor drought developing in one of these 3 spots. Now, I know you're looking at going under the 3. Well, I don't see a lot of dry like I do in the Mid-South or the Delta, but that's because it's really only one major year that's got me concerned, and that's 2016. That was a major drought year for the Southeast. That was a year, look at it here, where we had a big El Nino that crashed into neutral by the time we got into summer. And we're here. How far down are we going to go? What's to be expected? The analogs, suggest that there's a possibility of risk. I expect us to be warmer than average, practically hot this summer at times. I expect most of the temperature to be more biased toward the hotter side at night. That's what the graphic on the left says. All right, do the models agree with me? They don't. They really don't. Let me show you what they say. They're not saying to worry about drought here. You know what they're saying? They're saying this. April, May, June, stormy. Green's wet, brown's dry. This is what the outlook is for May, June, and July. More storms. Where's the drought? Mexico into the 4 corner states, Western Plains. This is June, July, August. Still no dry signal. It's still a stormy one. Where's their drought risk? Here. That's June, July, August. July, August, September. Maybe pressing into this area, but now we're pushing up against the hurricane season, which we're expecting to be active. If you go by the European model only, which it did not do a terrible job for your region this past winter, but if we took it verbatim, it's saying, yeah, you'll be fine. A lot of storms, no massive risk for drought in the model, but we think it's going to be stormy, it's going to be hot. Stormy, hot. That's what it's looking at. There's another model suite, though. It's called the NMME, and this is its main webpage. U.S. precipitation rate, this is what it's got. Here's the 8 models that go into making this map. May, June, July, what does it have? Storms. Where's the drought? Here. Once you go past May, June, July, what about into June, July, August? It has the drought rebuilding. The Corn Belt, Great Lakes Basin, the 4 corner states, not us. It's got a stormy. What about beyond that? Season 3, which would be out there July, August, September. Hyperactive hurricane season. Okay, what do you do with this? Because this is not the narrative I just gave you from the analogs. This means that Eric has no confidence. I can't believe I just talked about myself in the third person, but that's the way I feel about this. I don't have any confidence in this longer range forecast. What I'm waiting on is to get through May to see how the ocean temperatures respond. where the momentum is in the atmosphere, and does it start to pile up drought somewhere early? I mean, that's why I began you with this. Well, sorry, I began you with the current map. Where will we see drought building and where are we going to see it drop off? History would say, watch out right here, watch out right here, or watch out there, and erase all of this with summer thunderstorms. The models are saying, bring the drought here and expand it there and make it storm like mad everywhere in between, and then a hyperactive hurricane season. About the only thing that we all agree on is the hurricane season. And Colorado State earlier this week, on April 4th, last Thursday, I think I showed you this, they released their new hurricane forecast. And in every category, they are well above the historical averages. They're actually calling for a hurricane season that could be 150 to 200% of normal. That is actually one thing that I have confidence in. Nothing else, though. Really nothing else. So we have to let the narrative continue to evolve, and we're going to do that. And that's why each week I bring you up to speed on these things. So sit back and follow this along with me over the coming weeks, and we'll build that story and start to catch these signals as they come. But from the hurricanes, I want to take you to a quick global perspective to wrap this up. It's raining on the safrina crop in South America. This is perfectly timed rains just at or ahead of pollination. It's raining in Argentina. We've got rain throughout Europe, except for this part of Western Europe, and flooding rains happening in the desert here in parts of like Iran, Pakistan, this particular region. Wet in China as well, especially along and south of the Yangtze River, and wet along the east coast of Australia. Temperature-wise, this is the next 10 days globally. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. And now you know what I'm watching, you know what my concerns are, you know my confidence level. We'll just pick this up again next Friday and keep the narrative going. So you have a great weekend, and we'll speak then. Thanks.